and living through the dying process. And of course, if we're fortunate, we'll be able to support our loved ones when they are going through that process as well. So let's talk about it. There's a lot we don't know, even though we all have to do it. So tonight, I have every expectation that a lot of questions are going to get answered. If you have questions when something comes up, raise your hand. We have time to answer them, I think. They might be saying my name is Nikki. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a death doula here in New Mexico. And my practice is called Bon Marie. I am filling in for Gail. Gail's last name, Rubin. Gail Rubin, who is the doyen of death. She's written books, she has podcasts, she has a YouTube channel, she's amazing, her materials are available to you. Please check them out, she happened to call away last minute. So I'm contributing, forgive me as I say anything upside down. Tractions, Ruby, thank you so much for having us tonight. This is a precursor to the Before I Die Festival, which runs November 1st through the 4th here in Albuquerque in multiple sites. Every day is a full day of learning and entertainment, death entertainment. So we strongly encourage people to attend. What else do we need to say about that? So tonight we're going to be talking, and then on Saturday, we have a resource fair called Death is Not a Dirty Word, where people who work in end of life are going to come together, be available for questions. And that is at 9 o'clock at the Unity Spiritual Center. And then Friday, November 1st, Eco-Friendly Funerals kicks off at 9 a.m. at Passages International. It's a full day of exploration and content, and then every day after. We'll talk more about that later. To get us started, oh wait, can I say thank you to our sponsors? I apologize. I want to say thank you to the people who made this possible. A Good Goodbye, which is now Bernalillo County Indigent Program, Better Place Forests, Boston Trails Hospice, Conscious Crossroads End of Life Services, Death Doula Professionals, End of Life Options New Mexico. Those, by the way, those are all here tonight if you have questions for them. French Funerals and Cremation, Keeper Memorials, and Passages International. So please, thank you to them. Okay, are we ready to go? Is that good? Okay. I'm going to let these amazing humans introduce themselves. Please give us your name, the name of your business, maybe what your specialty is, and how you came to be a death doula.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brooke Nutting. I own Doula Professionals. I am an end-of-life guide and death doula. I specialize in helping you plan, prepare, work through any questions you might have around end of life. I sit bedside with families at the end when they are ready, and I do some peer group support. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I look forward to talking with you more.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I started a business called Achieving Aloha, which means achieving wholeness, peace, harmony. And how I started the Death Care Network was as a national clinical social worker and director of social services in nursing care facilities. And so I was the one to do all the paperwork, to call the resources, the family. But now I'm going to be an independent individual as a licensed spiritual practitioner. I help people with their end-of-life paperwork, their questions, being an advocate for them, for their family as well as healthcare. I've also done spiritual counseling And I guess just overall for me, being a deaf doula is about listening and asking questions. Do they know what they want? Has the paperwork been done? All the way into what you want done with your body. And so it's an amazing, amazing call to be a deaf doula and working with deaf care.
Hello everyone, I'm Danielle Simpesky. I'm the owner of Conscious Crossroads End of Life Services. I'm an end of life guide, deaf doula, and peer grief companion. I came to this path a little, I guess sort of typically. I used to be a nurse. I was an ER and trauma room nurse, and then about 10 years ago got really sick myself. Had a really long hospital stay with a near-death experience, lots of surgeries, and awfulness in the ICU. And what I took away from all of that was that there's nothing to fear on the other side, and that I now have this calling of just helping other people recognize and realize that. And how can we educate and help people understand that we're part of this circle of life, right? We're not outside of it just because we have opposable thumbs, that we're part of the circle, and how can we enter that circle and develop a relationship with death far before we get there so that we can accept it with grace when our time comes.
Thank you all for that. Can I ask how many people in here had heard of a deaf doula before you walked into the room? Hey!
So you did come for us. Right.
That's fantastic. All right, so this is going to be a refresher for you all. But Danielle, will you tell us what a deaf doula is? What a deaf doula does?
Each deaf doula is going to do things a little bit differently, and each one of us are certified likely through a different school. But the overall similarities that we have are that deaf doulas provide non-medical, holistic, mental, physical, spiritual, practical support to those who are dying and those who are taking care of those who are dying. So that can look very different for each one of us, but that's kind of the overall similarities.
That's a really good start. So when a deaf doula goes to someone's home, let's say a family member calls and says, my mother is ill. What kinds of things are you doing when you arrive at the home?
So when we get contacted, usually it's a family member that's reaching out to us. Their parent or loved one is starting the process at end of life. We start with a meeting, usually on the phone, to just kind of get an idea of what we can do to help, what the situation is. And then we move to typically a 2-hour consultation where we sit with the family and the person that's dying and get an idea of what we can do to help them answer the questions that they have. Because there can be a lot of fear around death, and we tend to make it worse in our heads than it actually can be. And so we sit with the family and the loved ones and really discuss what could be happening. And then each end of life is slightly different than any other one. If you have cancer, if you're dying at old age, if you have COPD, all of these things look slightly different, and we can help guide the family on what that is going to look like.
Fantastic. Kelly, will you talk about the kind of training that deaf doulas go through in order to get certified?
I actually have not gone through the certification for a deaf doula. I'm considered a deaf doula because I work in the Deaf Care Network.
Closer
And
to your mouth.
sorry. My training I can talk about, and then I'll hand it to someone else. But my training is a master clinical social worker. That's how I became director of social services. I worked in the death care network to get people services to keep them safe at home. Then I became a licensed spiritual practitioner through the Center for Spiritual Living. And that's where I get a lot of contacts. People call for prayer. I go, I pray with them. And then from that becomes questions of how can I support you in other ways. And then I find out they are going through some sort of transition period and they're not on hospice. They don't have understanding of what needs to be done. And that's where my jump off point is. But yeah, do you want to talk about death doulas specifically?
So the kinds of training that death doulas get. For starters, there's currently no overarching regulatory or licensing body for death doulas. So anyone can use the title death doula, right? And in fact, death doulas have generally, throughout our history, it's been something that was passed down, right? Your grandmother did it. You watched how your grandmother worked with people. She taught you, and that's how it was. There was no certification. There was no schooling. And so now that's kind of just a byproduct of our current society that requires some sort of validation or credentials to be able to do something. With that being said, there are multiple different certification schools available. I went to one called Conscious Dying Institute. I'll let Brooke speak to the one that she did. Mine was a 6-month online course. We had weekly check-ins, there was lots of readings, online courses and things that you had to do, but the real certification, if there is such, comes from the actual hands-on practice. There's nothing that a book is going to teach you that's going to get you ready to do this work. So anyone at this point can call themselves a death doula. It is very similar to something like life coaching, where there's no body, like I said, that tells us what you have to do. So each doula is going to be certified somewhere different, and you'll just have to talk to them about exactly where they got their training.
So I took a course online as well called Doula Edition. It was out of New York, and it was a 3-month online training course where I went through course studies on my own for a period of time, and then I also attended online courses where there were several of us on there engaged in a classroom setting. I felt like I was going to a new version of high school that everybody experienced during COVID. I didn't understand, but it's been very nice. I think we should back up one thing and maybe explain what doula is. That's a word that's been around since ancient Greek times. And it was literally translated to a woman who serves. We now currently have men that do doula work. We joke with them that maybe they're doulos, not doulas, but they tend to say that they're all doulas with us. It typically was work done by a female slave or servant, because it tends to be dirty and hard work. It's very labor intensive, in the fact of our minds are being put to the test to help people. As Danielle said, it's a newer term. It's a holistic approach to the end of life as well. There are several other doula training courses out there. There's probably about 20 of them. If anybody is interested, Danielle and I hosted our offices the Wanna Be a Death Doula workshop, which lasts for about an hour and a half. And we go over all of this stuff in detail and tell you what courses are out there and what they all look like.
Okay. So when it comes to end-of-life care, there are a lot of things going on out there. Some we're all familiar with: hospitals, assisted living, nursing homes, and then of course there's hospice and palliative care. So could you all help us understand where death doulas fit in to that sort of landscape of end-of-life care? So when it comes to palliative care, hospitals, etc.
I am happily going to give this to Danielle because when I first met her a year ago and someone asked her this question. I don't know if you remember the answer you gave.
I certainly don't.
The stucco.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I loved it. I'm gonna let her share.
So I have an analogy for what death doulas are, and it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it makes a lot of sense to me. We're all familiar with slime, right? The thing you played with as a kid, oozes through your fingers and fills in a lot of cracks. That's what death doulas are. There are a lot of gaps and cracks in the system, right? And we come in and we're kind of amorphous, and what shape do we need to take in this moment to fill in those spaces? And so to give you a more concrete answer than that random analogy, but thank you. Palliative care is when someone has a chronic condition or an end-of-life condition or a terminal condition where we understand that we're not curing or treating this disease anymore, we're treating the symptoms. We're mitigating symptoms and keeping someone comfortable. It's all about quality of life as opposed to quantity of life. Hospice can work alongside palliative care. Hospice is actually a form of palliative care. The goal is comfort and not cure. The difference is that in order to qualify for the insurance benefit that is hospice, because that's technically all that hospice is it's an insurance benefit. It's a word that we chose to use for Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement. You have to be deemed terminal, meaning that if left untreated, your disease process is likely to kill you or end your life in 6 months. That's where hospice comes in. You can start working with a death doula far before you're ready for hospice or far before that 6 month time frame. And the doula will work with you all the way through the end of your life and death, and oftentimes continue with your family members for bereavement and grief services afterwards. So we're kind of like that spoke in the wheel of what services do you need? I'm that touch point. How do we send you to the right place at the right time?
I think a lot of what people utilize us for is our resource network. Because we work in this industry, we know who provides the care that you might specifically need or want. And so it takes a lot of the guessing game out of it for other people. Because you get a lot of referrals and you get a lot of information thrown at you when you're planning on going on hospice. And so that's one of the biggest resources that we do. We see a lot of them with who we work with. We see what works well and maybe what doesn't work well. One of the biggest misnomers is that once you're on hospice, you have to stay with the hospice provider. And that is not true. So if you're not getting the level of care that you think your loved one deserves, you can change that. And it can happen fairly quickly. So don't be afraid to ask that question if you just aren't getting the resources that you need.
Thank you for that. So what about before people are terminal? I, as a death doula, love to work with folks who are planning ahead and thinking about what's going to happen at the end of their life. And I especially love to talk to people who have unconventional lives and therefore are really invested in making sure it doesn't all go upended at the end. So can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that death doulas can do to help people think about and prepare for what's going to come?
So another hat that I wear is a volunteer for end-of-life options New Mexico, and they're sitting right here. Thank you for being here. And one of the things we do is we were trained to do small group advanced healthcare directive education. And so that's one of the things in people preparing for the inevitable is preparing the paperwork and filling that out and asking questions and getting family involved and then what do you want to do with your body? Because I went to an amazing 8-week course given by Jane sitting over here. And I learned for the first time that there are so many things happening right here in New Mexico, and it doesn't have to be just a traditional funeral. And so education is, I think, the first thing that I go for. And questions, do you know what you want? Do you know what you want to happen? And what I learned also in these trainings is that when you fill out this paperwork, it's not about what you want to happen in 20 years. It's about what do you want to happen tomorrow if you don't have a voice. And then revisit it every year and update it. Is this still the person I want to be, my advocate? Or is this something changed? And so it's education, questions, and listening.
So the schooling program I went through with the Conscious Dying Institute, I actually have 2 separate certifications. The first one they call a Conscious Dying Coach, which I tend to shy away from the word coach and call myself a guide. And then the Sacred Passage Death Doula. With the coaching certification, they taught us a protocol where you start with a guided meditation, where someone that is young and healthy and death is far off in the future, we walk through you walking into a doctor's office and receiving a terminal diagnosis. And we put an actual expiration date on you, if you will. So today is October 24th. So November, December, January. This is going to be your last Christmas, your last Thanksgiving, your last New Year's, maybe your last birthday. And with that in your head and in your heart, now we dive into your planning questions. Because your answers are likely going to be very different if we're talking about real world scenarios like Kelly's saying. If death is 3 months out, what do I do? As opposed to 20, 30, 40 years down the line where we all hope it is. So that's the process I like to walk people through, is to get into that head and heart space of, I have a finality in 3 months. And then we start planning.
One of the topics that I like to talk to clients about is, what do you want it to look like versus what does your family want it to look like? And who are you putting in place to ensure that what you are doing, what you want specifically, won't be changed by your family? So choosing a medical power of attorney, we all typically think it's going to be your brother or your sister or your children, but they may not be suited to fulfill the wishes that you really want at the end of life. And so we talk about that. We list, maybe it's going to be your sibling. And you think about it for a couple of weeks and when you come back and talk about it again, you realize, yeah, Bobby's not going to do what I want him to do for me. I sat down and told them, it's not going to even be close. So I encourage people to find somebody outside of their familial circle, because that may not be the one that's going to be able to do it. If you don't want to be on life support, if you don't want to have artificial nutrition at the end of life or artificial fluids, we all think we don't want to get dehydrated. But that conversation of what dehydration actually is good for at the end of life really shifts people's thought processes. We're getting artificial nutrition, it's keeping us alive, but our body is shutting down. What is that? What's the purpose of that then? And then fluids, our bodies naturally don't need as much water anymore once we've entered the dying process. And so we start to swell up. And we share that with people, they go, oh, I don't want that. And it immediately opens your mind to different ways to do it. Maybe you're transgender. You were born as a girl and living as a man, and you don't want to be in a dress in your casket, but your family's going to do it. They're going to put lipstick back on you. Those things we can jot down, write down, and put in place so that it's taken care of. And we can also help you walk through the process of getting a designated agent at the end. So in New Mexico, if you don't have a designated agent form filled out, automatically law states that it goes to next of kin, whether that's your siblings, your parents, your children, whatever that lineage is. If that's not who you want to be making decisions, we have to fill out a form in New Mexico called designated agent. That is super key in order to make sure that your body is handled with the care that you want it to be done.
There are a lot of options now for after death that maybe, now y'all are in the water, so you've probably heard about a lot of these, but the things that are available now to people who don't care to follow the conventional path, there's a lot. Could you pick your favorite or the most surprising, and or if there's something that you've been involved in, maybe a home funeral, for instance?
There's so much fun stuff. I love this question. Interestingly, what I think is my favorite isn't necessarily what I want done. And I didn't realize that until you just asked this question. So my favorite currently is Parting Stone, which is up in Santa Fe. And they take cremains. So after someone has been cremated, right, the ashes, if you will, and through a process of heat and compression, they're turned into stones. Little meditation stones. You can place them in their garden, you can hold them in prayer, meditate with them. They can be sent to, family around the country so everybody has a piece of you, if you will. The cool part to me is that everybody, right, every one of us, our stones will look different. They use the exact same process, the exact same on everybody. They come out different colors, they come out with different striations and pockmarks and different size stones, and they don't understand why. That's cool. But I want to become a tree, so my thing is becoming a tree eventually. But
somebody over there is happy about that. Yeah, the tree.
So what surprised me was last year at Before I Die Festival, when we were at Passages, which we will be again this year, is all the varieties of what you can do, which is a tree. And then to learn that our ashes are not really good to plant with a tree, that it has to be separated and there's to be cold and how to do it appropriately was just like, what? And then they have like turtles, and you can put ashes in the turtles and they're biodegradable, and you put them out in water and then they are released eventually. So I love all the variations from Passages. I too want to be a tree. I'm going to be the largest tree.
So currently my plan is to be cremated and turned into the parting stones. That's my current plan. If body composting becomes legal in the state of New Mexico, that is probably going to be my choice. So what that looks like is your remains, the body is laid into a honeycomb style vessel where nutrients are added to it that get into the soil. There are I'm going to microbiology here. Microbes get into your skin and help, or into your body, and help to compost you, just like you would in your backyard compost with all of your food scraps. But what turns out is that a normal-sized human body gets a truckload of dirt that then can go back to your family, and you can be in a garden. Gardening is one of my favorite passions. I spend a lot of time with my hands in the dirt, and I like that idea of it. There are other things you can do with that soil. You can split it up and share it with other people. Certain states allow it to go in and help rebuild our forests that have burned, to help grow trees and greenery again for that. So that's a nice option as well. There's something called aquamation that's probably not ever going to be legal in New Mexico. We have a lot of issues with water shortages here, and it takes quite a lot of gallons of water to dissolve the soft tissues of our body, just like it would in cremation, fire. You do it with water, and then your bones are left, and it's put into a cremator, cremulator, thank you for that. And then your bones are ground up and then you get the remains back. The cool thing with that is you get 100% of your bones because they can drain out all of the fluid, which typically goes into the sewer system. So it's a lot of water going away. But you're able to recover 100% of your remains. When you get cremated, you get 100% of recoverable remains. So there's a little bit of you that might be left behind in that retort when the body is burned. So there's quite a bit of options.
There's also natural burial, which is similar to a Jewish burial. And we have one here in New Mexico near Berlin, and it's called La Puerta. And it is an amazing place. They give free tours, and you can go out and ask them all the questions. But basically, people do it in many different ways. I've seen it done where they've had a home funeral, and death is not an emergency. You can be with the body. And if you want to be with the body longer than a couple of hours, you just ice. And you can be with it up to 3 days. And so people have home funerals, and then they take them in a natural box. It could be bamboo, it could be pine, and they take it to the natural burial, which is really cool because it is this amazing landscape. And there are no, headstones, thank you. And you can purchase this now and have it now and have all these plans taken care of now. So when they have your body, they know what to do. They even can come and pick it up if people can't bring it to them. So natural burial is another option.
There's so many.
Yeah, all right. I just want to add a couple details to both of those because they're really cool. So the technical term for body composting is natural organic reduction. And what's really cool about it is it's all of the natural microbes that are already on your skin. They don't add anything, there's no added chemicals, there's no added bacteria, they don't do anything else. All they add is organic material. So straw, flowers, grasses. So it can be a really beautiful funeral because as the body is laid out, families just placing these flowers and plants and maybe even things from your own garden around, and that's what helps the body start the process of breaking down. So I just wanted to add that. And then with La Puerta, very similarly, the body is only placed about 3.5 to 4 feet deep as opposed to our conventional 6. It's not placed in any kind of a vault, right? And the reason for that is so that oxygen and microbes and whatnot can get to the body and actually decompose it, as opposed to it lying embalmed and preserved in abject eternity.
I'm curious, does anybody here have any other post-death processes that you've been excited about, like getting shot out of a rocket? Which exists.
No, but at any point, more information about, I want to be a tree.
Oh, sure, let's do that right now. I want to be a tree.
So there's a couple of different things with that. I don't believe that there's definitely not anywhere in New Mexico where it's legal at this point, and I still don't think there's anywhere in the States. But there's this, it's like a pod almost, where they wrap a body, a full body, kind of in the fetal position with burlap, if you will, and then place a sapling in there. The challenge is bodies aren't, like she mentioned earlier, bodies aren't great for plants. Not right away. They need some help. So one of the ways you can do it is through a Passages International. They sell an urn that you can take cremains. There's a plant in the top. The cremains are down in the bottom. And as you water that plant, there's this filter membrane in between that slowly trickles down into the cremains. And it, I believe, Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe cremains are very alkaline. And so is that right? I believe they're alkaline, and it's too much for a plant. So slowly as the water moves down into it, it balances that pH out enough, and as the plant grows, eventually the urn itself will break. And then you know it's time to plant the plant in the ground. And so it can be a tree, it can be any kind of plant you like, but, so yes, whether it's eventually with my full body when they figure that one out here in the States, or with my cremains, I want to be able to love. So that's my duty.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to be inviting some questions here in a minute, but before we open it up, it's story time. So, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Like, what are your favorite or perhaps most remarkable experiences at bedside that you're able to share with us?
So the most remarkable experiences that I've had, and I've had multiple, have all been around someone passing, and they have some kind of unfelt grief. And to be sit there and hold a sacred space for them to process their feelings and find a sense of relief. And that can be done just in the process of listening, or again, in the process as a licensed spiritual practitioner in prayer. But to hold a sacred space for someone to let go of what they need to let go so they find peace has been the most powerful experience that I've experienced.
So like I said before, no death is exactly the same, and I've witnessed and had the honor of being with several people now. But it can come at different times. So I was called in for a little bit of respite care. Arrived about noon. This person was...
Can you say what respite care is?
Respite care is, thank you, Nikki, is just giving the family a little bit of a break. You come in, they might want to lay down and take a nap. They might want to just go and sit outside in the sun and not have to worry. So I sit with their loved one so that they know that there's somebody there who can come and get them if something changes. But if nothing's changing, then they're available to get a little bit of rest. Maybe even go home and take a shower, because that sometimes is something we forget to do when we're caring for somebody at the end of their life. So this person had gone home to take a shower. There was a sibling that was there with them. This man was not going to die anytime soon. He was just being put on hospice the day before. He was doing really well. And in a 4-hour period that I was serving his respite care, he went from communicating to not communicating and starting the active dying process. That was unexpected for me. But I was able to stay with the family and walk them through what all of the transitions look like and guide them and make sure that they were nearby when he took his final breath. In all of my clients and family members and loved ones that I help transition, my favorite part that I do is after the passing, after the last breath is taken and they're now dead, I like to gather some flowers and kind of rearrange the room that they're in and make it look less medical, because usually there's a hospital bed with a lot of sheets and things around. I like to move all of that to the side and make it a little bit of a softer space. I do that because I experienced the death myself of a loved one. And when she died, the room felt very cold. And nobody wanted to walk into it. And I thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. So that's what I like to do the most. Take flowers, I put them in their hand. If it won't work, I let it their shoulder, or maybe light a candle, tie it up, put a picture that's really loving of a good family photo that they remember, and put a chair next to them so that the families can come in and sit with them and say anything maybe that they didn't get said at the very end.
I have a couple stories that were really powerful and affected me on a human level and a professional level, and how I work with people moving forward. And one of them, I had just started my business. I had met this woman as a volunteer through hospice, and she had ALS. She was in her mid-50s. She'd been on BiPAP, which is a mask to deliver oxygen into you, or it kind of forces oxygen in.
Sorry. May I interrupt you?
Yes.
We have a hearing assistant device. Will you put this on your collar?
Oh, yeah.
This side out, and then when you pass the mic, pass that as well.
Can you hear me now? Perfect. Okay, so she was forced with the choice to allow herself to be trached, which means putting a breathing tube here directly into your throat and being on a ventilator for the remainder of her life, or choosing to use medical aided dying, which is what she chose. In walking through the vigil planning process, vigil time is the last general 72 hours of someone's life. I always ask them what their favorite flowers are, what their favorite color is, what their favorite music is, what their favorite passage out of a book or a spiritual text is. This particular woman wanted daffodils, and it was October. Okay, I really want to give you what you want, but that's a tough one. And so what I did instead was put together bags of daffodil bulbs for everyone in the family, because her family traveled from all over the country and all over the world to come be there for her ingestion day, or her dignity day, as we called it. And now these family members get to plant these bulbs they have, and they get to pop up every year. And that's like a living legacy to her. We also did an anointing ritual together. We would take an essential oil and just place it on different body parts and say a prayer of gratitude for that body part and what it's done for us throughout life. It's a really nice way for family to say goodbye. This particular woman chose her own oils, and she wanted peach tea tree, and lavender. And I'm like, that's gonna smell awful together. But man, like, it wasn't. It was beautiful. It was the best smell I've ever smelled. Her family was placing these oils all over her body as we were listening to and singing Stairway to Heaven to her, because she was a huge Led Zeppelin fan. So that's how she left this planet, was being massaged and held and touched by her loved ones while we all sang Stairway to Heaven. It was pretty awesome. And then more recently, I had another gentleman who chose to use medical aided dying. He had prostate cancer. And my husband, Luke, over here, who's a musician, came and played music for us. This gentleman went out to Don't Worry, Be Happy. That was his request. And immediately before he drank his medicine, his wife gave him this beautiful hula performance to What a Wonderful World. She had studied under hula for years. And so, sitting outside in his courtyard, surrounded by his rose bushes, underneath his honeysuckle, he ended his life looking into his wife's eyes after she gave him this beautiful performance, and we whistled Don't Worry, Be Happy together. So those are two of my favorite stories.
Okay. I see a question in the audience, so they're available for whoever's going to answer this question.
So in high school, my next door neighbor, Sue, person I've ever met. And she was also a 35-year sober alcoholic. And her children wouldn't speak to her anymore, and she never did say why. But my brother and I adopted her as our standing grandma. We just adored her. So when she died, she had a 12-step meeting. That was her feeling. And I've never seen so many people in the room who, everybody who shared, spoke about how she changed their lives. And you cannot imagine what a difference 1 month would make. Right? Everyone just had this overwhelming love for her. And so I just thought that was one of the coolest ways to go.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's lovely. Sorry, point of order.
Actually, can I hop in there real quick? I have something to...
I see you.
Yeah, please. I want to speak to that for just a moment because I think that's one of the coolest things as death doulas we get to do is to be someone for people at the end that I don't have any attachment to their story. I don't know who you were before. I don't have resentments, right? You weren't supposed to be something to me. So where family members often have a very hard time at the end, very validly so. I will likely be hiring a doula when it comes time for my parents, right? I'll need the help. And to get to come in and to witness someone as they are now, that's one of the coolest things we get to do.
Yes, I don't know if you all could hear Brooke there saying we need to talk about mental health and mental health before we do.
I hear what you're saying, and you're loving people and just helping them on their way to death. But my question is, what does a doula do about after death? Because you deal with people, spiritual people, whether they're Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, whatever, that have their conceptions after death. And it would seem to me, that when my wife and I, we work with seniors for years, and we've experienced a lot of death. And when you're on their deathbed, you're thinking, what's going to happen next? What comes after? And some people think, well, there's nothing after it, and I respect that. But a lot of people that you deal with, that's their beliefs. And so my question is, how do you respect that as a doula? And how do you deal with that individual's personal spiritual beliefs?
That is a really, really good question. Who's going to take that?
The spiritual practitioner.
Our spiritual practitioner is going to take that.
How do I respect somebody's belief system? Am I hearing you correctly? For me, whether somebody is agnostic or Catholic, Muslim, New Age, there is a golden thread through all of it, for me. And that's love. And so how I respect somebody's belief system is that because I don't have attachment to a history with this individual, I love them. So I'm looking out at everybody, and I love you. And that's how I can sit with your belief system. Conversations about what happens after death is a big one. It happens. they just want someone to listen about their belief system. Sometimes they want to know what I believe. If it's appropriate, I do share what my belief system is, what I've experienced. Like Danielle, I've had 2 near-death experiences, and I've had a shared death experience with my mother. But that's even irrelevant in the conversation. It's really about the individual I'm in front of. Tell me what you believe. Tell me what you think. How can I support you? And it all comes from a place of love and respect.
I think a lot of what doulas do is we meet you where you are. And we don't take our beliefs into that room. We are educated and trained to set our beliefs on a lot of things to the side so that we can be fully present for that person and help them. It doesn't mean that we don't get asked, because we do. What are our beliefs? What are our thoughts? But that's typically done at a later point when it's asked multiple times. We try to help them because this is a mystery. As somebody told me the other day, we came from a mystery place when we're born, and we go back to a mystery place when we die. None of us know completely. Even those that have had near-death experiences, they're here with us still. They have not made that complete crossover. So they can explain what it is up to a point, but they can't always tell us exactly what's happening. So it's still a mystery for all of us.
And I'm going to invite you to the Before I Die Festival because Gail has this amazing human being who works with people and has unbelievable insight about what she believes happens in the mystery place. And for me, it hit a lot of boxes of what I experienced and what I saw and what so if you want to know more about that specifically, I would invite you to the Before I Die Festival and hear from it.
Part of my training specifically was going through the entire process that I walk other people through for myself. And it was really interesting to me how in my cohort of other students in the class, a lot of people really struggled with the spiritual questions. Right? Where are you going to go? What's going to happen? And that was the easiest one for me. And it would not have been so before my near-death experience. And so I think for me, a big part of being able to hold space for other people's is just being really grounded in my own beliefs and knowing where I stand. And I'm not challenged because someone else has a different set of beliefs, right? I don't feel the need to try to proselytize or convert or change somebody. Like, by all means, like, I want to hear your perspective. Tell me more. I learn just as much from all of my clients as they're ever going to learn from me, if not more. And so for me, it's like I enter every room I enter with a client, I'm a student. And so teach me what you have to teach about spirituality. And so I enter it like that, like as a student.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Yes.
Hi. So are any of you familiar with using ketamine as an anti-anxiety for those who fear, dread, death?
Did everybody catch that?
There's a ton of promising research out there about psychedelics and plant medicines, ketamine, LSD, psilocybin, ayahuasca, all of these things. Ancient traditions have used medicines such as these, right? Ketamine is a synthetic, it's a pharmaceutical. But plant medicines to work through existential issues and for time immemorial, right? For as long as we've been around, we've been using medicines and ethnogens and things like this. So in the proper set and setting, 100% these medicines can be used to help people through anxiety surrounding end of life, terminal agitation, stuff like that. So, yes, 100% in the right set and setting.
All right, thank you all so much. We're at time, so I want to be respectful of you all coming out here tonight and being here. All right, so y'all please attend the Before I Die Festival.
Would you introduce yourself again? And your girl?
Oh, hi. Yeah, my name again is Nikki. My name is Nikki, and my business is called Bon Marie, which means good death. I have some material on the table over by that handsome fellow over there, and I'd love to talk to anybody. So we are going to be here for a little while longer. I believe there are a couple people who are going to be scarfing out some burgers. So please stay, ask your questions, get some materials. There's more information about all of the events, the Before I Die events, on this table. It's several sheets of paper stapled together. So please join us for those events.